Hi, this is the voice, Michael Chiavello. You're listening to the Premium Oddscast, hosted by leading MMA oddsmaker Nick Kalikas, fight scientist and author of Fightnomics Reed Kuhn, and MMA journalist Brian Hemminger. The absolute best UFC betting info, hits, statistics, and analysis from the most respected authority in mixed martial arts betting, MMAOddsBreaker.com.
Welcome to the Premium Oddscast, presented by BetDSI. I'm Brian Hemminger, joined today by leading mixed martial arts oddsmaker Nick Kalikas to break down this Saturday's UFC 223 event, which takes place in Brooklyn, New York. If you're unfamiliar with our format, Nick and I will break down the fight card from top to bottom, providing extensive analysis and a pick for each fight after doing our film study for the event. Looking back at our last event, we lost our 1-unit free bet on Oliver Enkamp. Back to the present, UFC 223 features a 13-fight card in total and will be aired on UFC Fight Pass, Fox Sports 1, and pay-per-view this Saturday night. Let's dive right in. Now, kicking off the preliminary card on Fight Pass is a featherweight contest between Zabit Magomed-Shapirov, who is 14-1, and Kyle Bochniak, who is 8-2. Now, Nick, where did this fight open, and how has the public shifted things so far?
Zabit opened minus 530, the comeback on Bochniak at plus 350. Now, check out our sponsored sportsbook, betdsi.eu, for all the numbers we're going to quote today. Right now, looking over at the Don Best screen, though, across the market, it looks like Zabit is around minus 820, minus 800, the comeback about 575, about 560. So Zabit basically an 8-1 favorite, the comeback on Bochniak about 5 to 6-1. A huge favorite coming into this spot. I mean, Bochniak is not exactly an easy fighter to beat either. So that tells you how much respect out there that Zabit is getting, and he deserves it, man. I mean, so far what we've seen from him, the guy's a total package. I mean, the hype is well deserved. His last performance over Moraes was just magnificent. I mean, it was really something that you can hang your hat on, because I think Shaman Moraes is definitely not an easy out. And he made it look easy. So that was a good, I think, test for Zabit. And I mean, like I said, he passed with flying colors for sure. Santiago, the win before that, was pretty impressive as well. And I think in a way, not that Bochniak is a step down, but I think this is going to be a little bit easier for him, because I just don't see how Bochniak can match up with Zabit in any aspect of the game. I mean, Zabit probably has the striking advantage in this spot. He's got the length advantage over Bochniak in this spot as well. He's got the wrestling, and he's got the ground ability too. So just in all areas of the game, Zabit is just a level above Bochniak at this point. Now, that doesn't mean Bochniak's not going to show up. He's a warrior. He's going to come to fight. He's going to put it all out there. I mean, that's what you come to expect. And if you look at Bochniak, I mean, it's not exactly been a bad career or a bad run so far in the UFC. Outside of his debut against Rosa that he took on short notice, that was a competitive fight. The Kennedy fight was really his worst performance, but he bounced back with a really good win over Davis in his last fight that a lot of people were kind of counting him out there as well. Now that it's not the same level as he's going to face here, it was a beat, obviously. So, but it still was an impressive win. So what I'm trying to say is Bochniak is game. He's a pretty solid fighter. He's no easy out, but he just is going to get outclassed here by Zabit. At least he should. So that's why you're seeing Zabit is such a huge favorite. That's why the public bet him up a little bit. Everybody's probably throwing him in parlays as well. I don't blame him out there. I think Zabit's legit. We're going to probably eventually see him earn a title shot along the way. But I'd like to see his next few fights and see what happens for sure, because I think there's some exciting times and exciting type of highlight footages ahead for Zabit as we get to that point. So the pick is Zabit. I'm not going to say much else for this. I just think stylistically it's a tough matchup for Bochniak.
Yeah, this is the biggest disparity in odds on the card for a reason. Magomed-Sharipov is one of the best and most exciting up-and-coming prospects in the featherweight division across any weight class, honestly, in the UFC. And Bochniak is seen kind of as a stepping stone. Now, I'll admit that I underestimated Bochniak a little bit in his last fight. It wasn't the greatest fight, but he fought smart, had a good game plan, and ended up racking up a victory. But against somebody like Zabit Magomed-Sharipov, I just don't think Bochniak has the weapons to take advantage here. Bochniak doesn't have good enough wrestling and submission defense to avoid what Magomed Sharapov can threaten on the canvas. And on the feet, while he has respectable boxing, Magomed Sharapov has elite boxing, and then he also has great kicks. I mean, he can throw all sorts of attacks, very dynamic striking style. So I just don't see any one area where Bochniak really has a shot to win this fight, other than if he just randomly can crack Magomed Sharapov with a right hand or something out of nowhere. And if that doesn't happen, then I think Magomed Sharapov steamrolls him and eventually probably hurts him on the feet and sets up a submission on the ground. So my pick is going to be Magomed Sharapov. Now moving up to the light heavyweight division, we have Devin Clark, who is 8-2, taking on Mike Rodriguez, who is 9-2. Now, Nick, what's the MMA oddsmaker's perspective on this one?
Line open exactly, pick a -120 either way. And right now, looking over at Don Best across the market, it looks like it's still a pick a -110. Line margins have tightened up a little bit. There's -115s out there either way, -106s, -110. So a pick 'em still. And it is a pick 'em type of fight, in my opinion, as well. Now, of course, you got Rodriguez coming in with a little bit more hype. I mean, he kind of got his hype from the Dana White Contender Series with an impressive knockout win. That knee that he landed on Jones was, man, just the timing on it was superb. It was really something that he's done in the past as well, and one of his best tools in his arsenal. So what you have in Rodriguez is a lanky striker that's a little bit more well-rounded than a striker. I mean, he comes from the Lausanne camp, so they got good ground game and they got decent wrestling ability as well. But make no mistake, for Rodriguez, his stand-up game is where it's at for him. Now, he's going to have a test here with Clark, though, because Clark's going to look to get the fight to the ground. I mean, Clark's not a bad striker, but he doesn't want to play that game here with Rodriguez. He's going to want to kind of wear Rodriguez down, get the fight to the ground, and try to do what he does best, and that's kind of grind people out. So that's what Clark's going to implement here. He comes from a great camp as well, the Jackson camp, Greg Jackson and crew. So he has a lot of good training partners, has a lot of good coaching to go along with it. So he's going to come in prepared, and he's going to look for the takedown. So that's what makes this fight tricky, and that's why it's a pick 'em type of fight. I think Rodriguez can win this fight by a flashy type of knockout. If he could stuff the takedowns and keep this fight upright, he probably does do that. Clark has been knocked out in his career already. I mean, we know that. So he's a little susceptible, especially the funny thing is, I mean, when Clark did get beat, and he got knocked out, the upset, that he suffered was to the hands of Alex Nicholson, which is another lanky type of striker. I mean, Alex Nicholson, we know that, again, he's a little bit more than that as well. So a lot of similarities is what I'm getting at here with Rodriguez, but Rodriguez is even a better version of Nicholson, of course. So Rodriguez has all the ability. If he can keep improving his takedown defense, this guy's going to be a threat in the light heavyweight division because, like I said, he's dangerous, man, with those knees, the timing that he has on it, with that length and with the knockout power that he possesses. If he can stay off his back and implement his game plan, he's going to have success. So I am going to pick Rodriguez to win this fight. I think there is a chance that he does sprawl brawl well enough to implement the stand-up game. I'm not going to be ultra confident in it, though, because as the fight progresses, I think Clark's going to really test him. And Rodriguez, as the fight goes, sometimes he does tend to wear down. His takedown defense does tend to let up a little bit, and I think Clark can take over as the fight goes. So I think what we'll see here is if Rodriguez does get the W, it's going to be early on. And as the fight goes, though, I think it kind of shifts a little bit more towards Clark's favor. So competitive line, competitive fight for a reason, but I am going to lean a little bit more towards Rodriguez. I think he probably does get the job done here.
And I agree. I think Rodriguez does have several advantages in this fight. He's the taller fighter. He's the longer fighter. I think he's got more power. I think he's got the better durability. Devin Clark, if you remember, did get knocked out pretty badly in his UFC debut. So I think Mike Rodriguez hits a lot harder than the guy Alex Nicholson, the guy that hurt Clark. So if Rodriguez can really connect with that left hand, if he can land a knee, I think Clark could be in big, big trouble. I mean, realistically, the best chance Clark has in this fight is for him to work the takedown game. He was able to do that in his victories. I mean, he had the wins over Josh Stansbury and another recent victory, but I'm not quite sure that he'll be able to do it against Rodriguez. Rodriguez uses his length very well. He attacks with ranged attacks to the lower legs. He flicks out a jab pretty well. He is able to assert himself at the edge of his range. And in his fight for the Tuesday Night Contender Series, I mean, he stuffed the takedown pretty easily. So before he landed the killing shot with the flying knee. So as long as he can utilize range properly, and with an 83-inch reach, I mean, that's almost John Jones tier. So that's pretty ridiculous how long this guy's arms are. If he can utilize that well, then I think he's going to be in really good shape. I mean, it's just going to boil down to keeping his distance and making it a lot tougher for Devin Clark to get inside and get him to the floor. So, my really only pause for concern here is Rodriguez does have a lot of first round finishes. So if this does get dragged a little bit into deeper waters, how is he going to fare? How will he handle some adversity? I haven't seen a lot of that yet. So that's one thing that's keeping me from saying this is a slam dunk, but still I am going to side with Rodriguez. Now dropping down to the women's flyweight division, we have Bec Rawlings, who is 7-7, taking on Ashley Evans Smith, who is 5-3. Now, Nick, where did this fight open, and how has the public shifted at things so far?
Evan Smith minus 230, Rawlings at plus 170. And looking across the down best screen right now, it looks like it's about 2-1 still, minus 200, plus 170, minus 210s out there, plus 160s, or minus 185, 163. So it is about 2-1 still for Ashley Evans Smith. This is kind of tough as well. I mean, Evan Smith is moving down for the first time in her career to 125 pounds. And really, I don't think she was a small bantamweight. So for her dropping down to the flyweight division, it's going to be interesting to see how her weight cut goes. Rawlings, of course, bumped up to 125 pounds. We know that. She didn't fare so well in her debut at 125 in the UFC because she ran into just a better fighter in Rose Clark, honestly. So, but she was competitive in that fight. And really, Rawlings probably doesn't get the respect she deserves in most cases either. I think she's a pretty complete fighter. She's not an easy out either. And I think this is going to be a fight. I mean, in my opinion, Rawlings is actually the better overall mixed martial artist, meaning that I think she's a little bit more technical on the feet over Evan Smith. She has that advantage. I think her pure submission ability is probably a little bit better than Evan Smith as well. I think Evan Smith, if anything, she's just a little bit of a better grinder. So she's going to want to kind of push the pace, grind Rawlings up against the cage, get some takedowns, try to get top position, utilize her ground and pound and position control on the ground as well. I don't know if it's going to be easy though. I'm expecting a war. It's going to be back and forth. I think Rawlings will show up and do a lot better than most of us expect. But the size difference should come into play enough where I think it gives Evan Smith just enough of an edge for me to pick her. But another spot that I can't be ultra confident. I think Evan Smith has a lot of room still to improve. And she is getting better though. Even for being more known as a grappler and a grinding type of fighter, I think her stand-up, you could tell it is improving. She's getting a little bit more confident. And, you know, you have to respect her power a little bit on her feet too. But I still think Rawlings is a little bit more technical in that aspect. So Evan Smith has to do what she does best, and that's kind of grind Rawlings out to get the W here. I think she can do that. But again, just not a confident take here. To be honest with you, I think that it is going to be a competitive fight that could realistically go either way, but I'm giving the slight edge to Evan Smith.
And I'm going to side with Evan Smith as well. I mean, we've got a fighter here in Bec Rawlings that I think could still make 115. And then Evan Smith, I mean, she's fought at 145 before. So dropping down all the way to the flyweight division, I was actually really surprised when I heard that Ashley Evans Smith was dropping down because I thought that she was a decently sized bantamweight. So I'm actually going to be keeping a very close watch on this fight, especially for the weigh-ins, because I don't know if Evan Smith will even be able to make 125 that easily. She is going to be significantly larger than Bec Rawlings. She's already a little taller, and Rawlings is a pretty good height, even at the flyweight division. But Evan Smith is going to be taller. She's going to be longer. She should be a lot physically stronger, even if she is dropping down and having to drop a little muscle. I think Evan Smith has a little bit more power, although Rawlings is probably the better stand-up artist, and Evan Smith should be the better wrestler. So I just think Evan Smith should be able to bully Rawlings. My really biggest concern in this fight for Evan Smith is that she does tend to make mental mistakes and lose fights that she was doing okay in, and where she just gets caught, like against Sarah Morris or against Raquel Pennington. She just got tapped out of nowhere. So she just needs to watch her neck a little bit and just try not to make any silly mistakes, but her size and strength should be enough for her to win this fight. But I mean, she can't, it all depends on if she makes the weight in the first place. And that's really my biggest, thing that I'm worried about. But as long as Evan Smith makes weight and doesn't look like a complete skeleton, then I think that she should win this fight. Now, closing off the Fight Pass prelims, we have a featherweight contest between Alex Caceres, who is 13-11 with 1 no contest, and Artem Lobov, who is 14-14-1 with 1 no contest. Now, Nick, what's the MMA odds maker's perspective on this one?
Caceres open -170, the comeback on Lobov at +130. Now looking over at the Don Best screen, looks like it's Caceres about $1.45, -145, Lobov +125. So line margins have tightened up a little bit, and there is two-way action coming into this fight. And this should be another spot here. If you're looking at it, Caceres, in my opinion, is by far the more talented and better fighter. I mean, across the board, I think Caceres has several advantages in this fight. He's got some length. I think overall his skill set on the feet is more diverse, and he can land at unorthodox angles. He's got a little bit of pop on his punches as well. So I like what I see in Caceres, even offensively on the feet. On the ground, obviously, Caceres has underrated wrestling, and then once he gets you to the ground, his grappling ability, his jiu-jitsu ability is good too. So I think he is definitely the more complete fighter. He's going to have some length, like I said. This is southpaw versus southpaw, so on the feet it should get interesting. The only concern here for Caceres is if he can defend that chin. I mean, Lobov does have some power. He likes to push forward. He is improving. So he's going to look to close that gap and stay inside to keep this fight upright and try to catch that chin of Caceres and get him out of there, which is very possible. That's why you're seeing this line be so competitive. If it wasn't, the chin wasn't as of concern, I mean, Caceres would definitely be a higher favorite in this matchup because he has, like I said, a lot of advantages over Lobov, but you can't count Lobov out. I mean, he's got the heart and he pushes forward and has that aggression and that winner's mentality, and he's able to get the job done. I mean, you're looking at two guys here that are basically 500 type of fighters, but they do deserve to be on the UFC roster because of what they bring. I mean, every time, they get in the octagon, they do perform relatively well and they're fun to watch. So whether you love them or hate them, that's a fact, I think. I mean, these guys will probably deliver here as well. So should be a competitive fight. I lean a little bit more towards Caceres because of the advantages that he does have. I think if he doesn't get clipped and knocked out, he probably does come away with the win here. So Caceres is my pick, but I am worried about that chin.
Yeah, this fight entirely boils down to whether or not Alex Caceres can protect his chin. Caceres is longer, more active, taller. He has the better ground game than Lobov. I mean, just overall, he is a much better mixed martial artist. But none of that matters if you can't protect your chin and you get blasted. And Caceres does have that issue. I mean, it's happened repeatedly throughout his career. The guy is capable of putting on tremendous performances and getting highlight reel finishes, but he also is capable of losing to random UFC newcomers like he did in his last fight. So I am definitely concerned for Caceres because Artem Lobov is clearly going to be aggressive and trying to knock Caceres' block off from the opening bell. But if Caceres can utilize his range, stay away from Lobov, fight off of his back foot, and just keep peppering him with his length, then he should be in good shape. But it's not always that easy. So I'm going to pick Caceres, but I don't know if I trust him. So I will be tentatively picking Caceres. And I doubt I changed my mind on this one, but I'm clearly concerned about him protecting his chin from Lobov's power. So my pick is Caceres, but just be careful out there, guys. Now moving on to the Fox Sports 1 preliminary card, we have a lightweight contest between Evan Dunham, who is 18-6-1, and Olivier Aubin-Mercier, who is 11-2. Now, Nick, where did this fight open, and how has the public shifted things so far?
Dunham opened -180. The comeback on Aubin-Mercier at +140. Right now, looking across the board on Don Best, it looks like it is currently with Dunham at -150. Comeback on Aubin-Mercier at +130. There's -140s, +120s out there as well. So you're looking at -140, -150 for Dunham. The comeback around +120, +130. On average across the board on Aubin-Mercier as well. So line margins have tightened up and a little bit more actually coming in Aubin-Mercier's way. I do agree with it somewhat. I mean, I know Dunham has been one of those guys that's just been really, awesome in the lightweight division throughout his whole career. He's had a long run in the lightweight division. He's put off so many quality wins along the way. I mean, he was on the brink of a title shot, and that's how good the guy has been, and he's been steady, and he's been on the roll again as of late. We've counted him out time and time again thinking, all right, this guy's 36 years old, he's chinny, he's got to be on the way out, and he just keeps on winning. So Dunham, I mean, with his toughness, with his grinding ability, with his stand-up game's a little bit underrated as well. Just everything about him. I mean, talk about the ultimate grinder and a guy that's not going to give up. And if you don't get him out of there, if you don't catch that chin of his, he's going to keep on coming and he's going to make your life miserable for the next couple rounds. So Dunham is that guy. And this is a big, giant test for Aubin-Mercier as well because a lot of people have failed it. But I do think the way these guys match up, I do favor Aubin-Mercier just a little bit. I think that this is a good matchup for him. Anywhere the fight takes place, I think he can compete and if not, outdo Dunham. So even in the grappling realm, I think it's going to be competitive. These guys could definitely both go on the ground and have success against others on the ground. And I think we'll see a back and forth battle here as well. I just think Aubin-Mercier's pure submission game is a little bit better. I don't think Dunham's going to catch Aubin-Mercier, where I think Aubin-Mercier has a slight chance to catch Dunham if they do get in a grappling exchange on the ground. But not just that, on the feet, even though Dunham's going to be pushing forward and, he's going to be working, his hands aren't that bad. He has a little bit of power to go along with it. I think Aubin-Mercier is going to be a little bit quicker. I think he's the more diverse striker on the feet as well. He's getting better. He's got a little bit more confidence in his ability to hit and do some damage as well. And I think, again, Dunham is 36 years old, like I said, even though he's tough and you can't get him out of there every time. He is a bit chinny, in my opinion, as well. So this could be a spot where Aubin-Mercier does catch Dunham on the feet along the way and maybe put him out. So that's a possibility. I think if it hits a scorecard, it's going to be really close, competitive, but I favor Aubin-Mercier on the cards a little bit as well. So to me, I'm going to go against the grain overall. I'll go with the underdog here. I think it's going to be a classic battle. I think Aubin-Mercier just has a little bit more ways to win this fight where he could probably get the finish. I don't think Dunham finishes Aubin-Mercier. I think the only way he could basically win this fight is to outgrind him and win on the scorecards, where I think Mercier could win on the cards and possibly win inside as well, if that makes sense. So my pick is Aubin-Mercier to pull off the slight upset win over Dunham.
Well, I understand the pick because Mercier is clearly the younger, up-and-coming fighter, while Dunham is the veteran standing in his way. I just keep having some nightmares a little bit about Mercier just getting styled on by Carlos Diego Ferreira on the ground. Mercier is a very good wrestler, and he does have a solid grappling game, but I don't think that it's an elite grappling game yet, and Evan Dunham does have a very strong ground game. So if this fight goes to the floor, I actually think Evan Dunham probably gets the better of Aubin-Mercier. And on the feet, you got to remember, Evan Dunham has been competitive on the feet with a lot of fighters that he should not have been competitive against. I mean, you look at Beneil Dariush, you look at Rafael dos Anjos. I mean, that was a fight that could have gone to Dunham's way. I mean, that was one of the closest fights I've ever seen. So Evan Dunham is a fighter that clearly deserves to be in the top 15 at this point in his career. He's been on a nice run, and this is a very big moment for Mercier. And you got to remember, Mercier is taking this fight on short notice. So I don't know if this is just the best thing for him right now. I think Dunham maybe has a few tricks up his sleeve as the veteran, and I think that he can get something going on the ground, and I think Dunham will actually have some success on the feet as well. Mercier does have some improving striking, but he's not the most active striker. I think Dunham might be able to outpace him a little bit, and Dunham does have a little bit better striking defense too. So I'm going to side a little bit with Evan Dunham. I think this fight will be very close, but I think the veteran pulls it out. Now, sticking with the lightweight division, we have Joe Lauzon, who is 27-15, and taking on Chris Gritzmacher, who is 13-3. Now, Nick, what's the MMA odds maker's perspective on this one?
Lauzon opened minus 245, Gritzmacher at plus 175. Now looking over at the Donbest screen and at DSI specifically, it's Lauzon minus 175 at DSI. Comeback on Gritzmacher is plus 145. So line margins have tightened up and a little bit more dog action coming in. And again, another spot where I can understand it. Gritzmacher is not the most popular fighter, of course. We know that, but he's a gritty guy. He's tough. He's got experience over solid competition, former Ultimate Fighter vet as well. He's got good wrestling. He's got a little bit of power on the feet. And his kryptonite has been his submission defense overall for the most part. So that's something that really should bode well for Lauzon, as that's one of his best attributes is the submission game as well. Lauzon, I think honestly, Lauzon's probably better in all aspects of the game here. I mean, I think he's a better striker. I think he's a better submission artist. I think wrestling wise, it's close. It would go back and forth, but what the difference here for me, and I don't trust Lauzon's chin at this stage. I mean, he's been knocked out 5 times in his career. He's had some great battles along the way as well. When his chin holds up, man, I mean, talk about another guy that's a warrior and capable of doing some amazing things. But I think at age 33 and the time that he spent with all these fights that he's had in the octagon, I don't know. For me, I just can't trust it all the way. Even though it's Gritzmacher and it's a fight he should win, it's another spot where I'm approaching with caution here, because I think if Gritzmacher is able to keep this fight upright and catch that chin of Lauzon might go out again, which is crazy. But outside of that, it's hard not to pick him here, though, because he is by far, in my opinion, the better fighter, the more capable fighter. And it would kind of be a shame at this point if he does lose to a fighter like Gritzmacher at this point of his career. So I hope for his sake, he gets the job done here in Boston and he gets the W, but it's not going to be an easy fight. I'm expecting it to be a war. If Lauzon doesn't get Gritzmacher out of there early, then it's going to get interesting if he can't sub him. I think if it gets his scorecards, it's going to be a very close competitive battle, and he's got to watch that chin because Gritzmacher is definitely going to test it along the way as well. So the pick is Lauzon, and I do agree with the early dog action coming in. I think the line was set a little bit too high at around 2.5 to 1. Even though Lauzon is the better mixed martial artist, he's just not his primer now. He's definitely on the decline. But again, he's capable of producing some decent moments still in his career, so you can't exactly count him out either. So I'm going to pick him to win, but this is another head scratcher to me.
Yeah, I'm going to go with Joe Lauzon too. I mean, Chris Gritzmacher is a physical fighter, but I don't know if he has a lot of areas in this fight where he actually has an advantage. Maybe pure wrestling, but that's about it. I mean, Joe Lauzon should be the better striker on the feet. Lauzon should be the better grappler on the ground. Gritzmacher probably has the wrestling edge, but does he really want to take Joe Lauzon down? A guy that can wrap you up and give you an arm bar, a rear naked choke, sweep you. I mean, you name it on the canvas. Lauzon has been able to do it throughout his career, and Gritzmacher has shown a tendency to get caught by submissions. So I just think this is a really bad stylistic matchup for Gritzmacher. I mean, unless his stand-up has improved drastically and he's able to clip Lauzon, because, Lauzon's getting up there in terms of experience and years and wear and tear, and his chin isn't what it used to be. So maybe if Gritzmacher clips him, but I just don't see it. I don't think that Gritzmacher is a good enough striker. I don't think Gritzmacher is a powerful enough striker, and I don't think that his submission defense is good enough to consistently get takedowns without getting put in a bad position. So I'm going to side with Joe Lauzon. I think the veteran still has another couple wins and maybe a bonus in his pocket. So Lauzon is my pick. Now dropping down to the flyweight division, we have Ray Borg, who is 11-3, taking on Brandon Moreno, who is 14-4. Now, Nick, where did this fight open, and how has the public shifted things so far?
Borg opened minus 230, the comeback Moreno at plus 170. Right now looking over at betdsi.eu. It's currently minus 278 for Borg, the comeback on Moreno at plus 228. So line margins have tightened up a little bit and more action coming in Borg's way. Everybody's pretty much on the same train of thought here, I think, with Borg. He should be able to get the fight to the ground, and when he does, he should be able to exploit Moreno on the ground. Even though Moreno does have some really solid jiu-jitsu in his own right, especially offensively, he does have his issues on the ground defensively at times. So Borg is not one of those guys that you want to mess with and make a mistake against on the ground, because he'll take advantage of that and he'll tap you relatively quickly. So that's going to be Borg's path to victory is getting Moreno to the ground. And even in a scramble, even if he gets put on his back, Borg, typically speaking, is good enough to reverse position, get in top position, and then make your life miserable, in a ground battle as well. So Borg has many ways of getting his way on the ground. So Moreno has to be cautious here. Moreno is going to have some size and some strength possibly over Borg. I mean, both these guys are young, age 24. You got to love their upside. I mean, these guys are only going to get better and better. That's a scary thing. And they're both contenders realistically at flyweight. I mean, Borg just had his title shot. It didn't go so well for him because he fought the man right now that nobody can beat at 125 pounds. But that being said, Borg is still towards the top of the division. He's only 24 years old. Moreno has a shot to get his respect back. I know he just lost to Pettis recently, and that seemed, I don't know why it would drop his stock all that much, but seemed to have hurt him a little bit. So a win over Borg would definitely put him where he wants to be, back in the mix of things as well. So, I mean, these guys have a bright future ahead, like I said. I mean, expect him to only get better and better. This is, I think, kind of a tough one for me, because I can see Moreno actually having some success on the ground, especially if he gets top control and he keeps his neck out of danger against Borg. I think we looked in the past. I mean, you've seen a guy like Scoggins able to have some success. Now, of course, Scoggins, I think, is a better wrestler and a little bit stronger than Moreno is, and he was able to keep Borg on his back and hold him there. And of course, Scoggins is a great striker. Let's not forget that as well. So Scoggins has some better advantages in that spot than Moreno does. But that being said, I can see Moreno kind of duplicating a lot of that style as well, and maybe getting top position. And if Borg can't scramble out, obviously Moreno's going to probably score some points on the ground there. On the feet, I think it'll go back and forth. Borg is going to have some speed. He's going to have his moments on the feet as well, but that's where Moreno probably is going to have his biggest advantage, is using a little bit of that length. I think he's got a little bit more power on the feet as well. He could do a little bit more damage. So I think it will be competitive. If Moreno does not make a mistake, I think if this fight hits the scorecards, it's going to be really, really close. It'll be a split decision type of fight, believe it or not. So I know that's not going to be a popular opinion out there. A lot of people think it's going to be a cakewalk for Borg, especially just, by doing this thing on the ground here. I think we're going to probably see a more competitive matchup than all of us are expecting here. So I'm going to pick Borg, because I do think the likeliness of him getting Moreno to open up on the ground and make a mistake and getting the job done is really good. And if not, maybe he gets a little bit more top control and grinds out a decision over Moreno. I can understand that and see that. So I'm going to pick him to win, but I do disagree where the line is right now. I think the opener was actually a little bit better. It should be closer to 2-1 rather than 3-1 as far as a betting line goes. So it's just my 2 cents in regards to that. I'm going to pick Borg to win, but I'm hoping it's an exciting battle, and I'm hoping Moreno doesn't make that mistake on the ground. So we do see what I'm expecting to be a pretty good fight in a war type of situation. So the pick is Borg, but hopefully it's close.
Yeah, I think this fight should be competitive when it's standing. Borg has made some improvements in his striking. Moreno is already a pretty established striker. He has a very unorthodox style with some good power. I mean, yeah, remember, he hurt Dustin Ortiz on the feet before finishing him with a submission, which is very, very impressive. So Borg has to be careful when this fight's standing. Moreno is longer than him by 7 inches with a reach, 3 inches taller. So, I mean, Moreno's going to be the much bigger fighter. And if he can keep that distance proper, then Borg might have a little bit of trouble closing that distance and getting this fight to the floor. That being said, once this fight does get to the canvas, I do expect Ray Borg to have a big time edge. I mean, Moreno does have a sneaky good guillotine choke, and he is an opportunistic submission artist, but Borg is clearly the superior grappler of the two. I think Borg should be able to advance to dominant positions against Moreno. And if he does do that, then I think that it's only a matter of time before Borg gets a submission. That being said, on the feet, Moreno is going to be very active and aggressive and dangerous, and he might even get top position. He does have some pretty good takedowns. So maybe Moreno, if he is the aggressor in this fight and really puts Borg on his back foot, I think Moreno does have a chance to win this fight. But I think the second that Borg does turn the tide, then I just don't see Moreno hanging with him, especially if Borg gets into a dominant position on the floor. So, my pick is going to be Ray Borg. I think that he does submit Moreno at some point in this fight, but I think Moreno will probably have his moments, especially on the feet. So I'm picking Borg, but just be careful out there. Now this takes us to the main event of the preliminary card in the women's strawweight division. We have Karolina Kowalkiewicz, who is 11-2, taking on Felice Herrig, who is 14-6. Now, Nick, what's the MMA oddsmaker's perspective on this one?
Kowalkiewicz opens -270. The comeback on Herrig +190. Right now, looking over at betdsi.eu, it is currently -190 for Kowalkiewicz. The comeback on Herrig at around +150. So line margins have tightened up and it dropped a little bit. More actually coming in Herrig's way. So basically from 3-1 down to about 2-1 or so. And I do think that the line is a little bit more fair where it's at now than the opener. I've been one of these people that have always thought Herrig was overrated. I know that she's had a good following and a big fan base even before she entered the UFC. A lot of people were on the Herrig bandwagon overall because she does have some skills. She's got the look. She's got a little bit of everything. She's marketable. I think, like I said, once she's gotten to the UFC, I think some of that's changed and she's almost become a villain at times out there because I think it's kind of a love thing with, type of situation with Herrig overall for fans at least. So, but you cannot deny what she's done lately. I mean, even myself, like I said, I think she's always been a tad bit overrated in her abilities overall, but to be honest with you, I mean, this little streak that she's been on has been pretty impressive and you can see the improvements that she's made in her game. Especially her last win over Courtney Casey. I mean, if you look at that fight, Casey has been on a little roll in her own right. And on the feet, where Casey seemed to have a bigger advantage at times, Herrig held her own, and her counterpunching was actually pretty good. If you look back and look a little bit closer, I mean, her counterattack, especially with that left hook, landed at will against somebody like Casey. And if you look a little bit closer at Kowalkiewicz, has a little bit of that issue, I think, defending against that left hook as well. So I think Herrig is going to land it often, and she's going to do a little bit more damage with it. So Kowalkiewicz, of course, we all know she puts the pressure on you. She attacks. She's constantly pushing forward. She's faster. She's going to have some good strikes of her in her own right. She's got a little bit of power, but I think stylistically here, Herrig might be a tough matchup for her. Again, I know it's not going to be a popular opinion because I think a lot of people at first glance are thinking, okay, man, Herrig's not going to be able to get Kowalkiewicz down to the ground, and she's going to probably Kowalkiewicz is going to pick her apart and win an easy decision here, but I think it's going to be closer on the feet. I think Kowalkiewicz might outland Herrig, but Herrig is going to be landing the harder shots, and possibly that mounts up as the fight progresses. And by the end of round 3, you can see Kowalkiewicz kind of wearing it on her face as well and getting beat up a little bit along the way. And I think the wild card here also is the fact that Herrig has a better ground game overall. I think she might be able to get a takedown, maintain top position if she gets her back, maybe even subs Kowalkiewicz. So there's a lot of things that you can like in what you see in Herrig, especially her confidence right now. And I think Kowalkiewicz is one of these people that we've all overestimated in some ways. I think that she is a good fighter. She's definitely one of the better fighters at 115 pounds. And I think the winner here sets themselves up nicely for a title shot possibly. If Rose ends up beating JJ again, I mean, Kowalkiewicz actually has a win over Rose, so that's a nice matchup, a rematch that they can have there. I think also if Herrig does pull off the upset here, then you have a case for Herrig to kind of get in the title mix as well, as surprising as that is to me right now. So this is a good fight. This is an important fight for both ladies. I think it's going to be ultra competitive. It's not going to be a clear decision like everybody thinks for Kowalkiewicz. I think it's going to be a very, very close competitive fight, and Herrig's going to hold her own. So I'm actually going to go against the grain here and pick the underdog to pull off the upset win here because, like I said, I think she's going to be landing the harder strikes. I think her ability to counter Kowalkiewicz is going to show clearly, and I think she's got the better ground game overall. So I think stylistically, it might be a tougher fight than most people think. So the pick is going to be Herrig to pull off the slight upset win over Kowalkiewicz.
Yeah, my issue with that breakdown is even if Herrig does land that left hook, I just don't think she lands it enough. I mean, Kowalkiewicz outstrikes Herrig at a pace of about 2-1. And they're both similar with their accuracy, although Kalikas is a little bit more accurate, and Kalikas has a little bit better overall defense in terms of striking. So the problem is, yeah, maybe Felice Herrig does land some left hands, but she's just going to be absorbing strike after strike after strike to land that left hand. And you can't just take 2 shots to land one, especially when you don't have that much power. I mean, Felice Herrig's never hurt anybody on the feet, as far as I know, at least in the UFC or in her Invicta run. So, Karolina Kowalkiewicz, I mean, we've seen that she does have a little bit of pop. I mean, it's not devastating power, but I mean, she did hurt the champion in her title fight. And she has really worn people down. I mean, she had, Rose Namajunas in a really bad way. Not from the power of her strikes, but she just wore her out with her pace, when they fought. So I just think, Kowalkiewicz is actually a bad matchup for Herrig. Just because of her activity rate. Where Herrig does have the edge is on the ground. She has put a lot of time in to improve her grappling. But I'm just not sure that she'll be able to take Kowalkiewicz down and keep her down. Kowalkiewicz has 85% takedown defense. I mean, the only people that have been able to take her down have been Claudia Gadelha. And yeah, that was impressive, but I mean, Gadelha is one of the best wrestlers in the whole division, and Herrig is not. She has good grappling, but I just don't think that she can get the fight to the floor if she really wants it to be there. So I just think this stays standing, and while Herrig does come from a striking background, Kowalkiewicz is just way more active and aggressive, and I think Kowalkiewicz wins a decision most likely, so that's going to be my pick. Now moving on to the pay-per-view main card, we have a lightweight contest between Al Iaquinta, who is 13-3-1, and Paul Felder, who is 15-3. Now, Nick, where did this fight open, and how has the public shifted things so far?
Iaquinta opened -150, the comeback on Felder at +120. Right now looking over at betdsi.eu, it is currently Iaquinta at -120, the comeback on Felder at -110. So line margins have tightened up a little bit more action coming into Felder's way. With Felder's performances of late, I mean, you can't really deny this role that he's been on and the improvements that he's made. I mean, he's definitely gained the respect of bettors out there and MMA fans across the board. So he's been doing some really good things, and you got to respect that. I mean, Iaquinta, on the other hand, has been not fighting, I mean, as steady, of course. Now he's had his issues with contract negotiations with the UFC. We all know all that stuff, but unfortunately for him, I mean, he's had one fight against Diego Sanchez in, I mean, the last couple of years. And I think that's not enough. I want to see some consistency. I want to see him in there. He's one of the best lightweights on the roster, and he's been for a long time. He just needs to show it, you know, and he needs to fight a little bit more consistently. So I get it. I mean, if he's going to hold off and he wants to get paid more and he thinks he deserves more, hey, it's business. But at the same time, when you're stepping back in the octagon after a layoff, another about almost a year or so against a guy like Paul Felder, I mean, you know, octagon rust is a little real. I mean, one fight, like I said, against Diego Sanchez along the way, I don't know. So that's what scares me a little bit about this fight. Typically speaking, I think that Iaquinta does have a lot of advantages over Felder. I think he's got the wrestling advantage, even though Felder has some really good takedown defense overall. I think Iaquinta has a speed advantage on the feet. He can, again, talk about a more diverse skill set striking a little bit. I know Felder mixes things up really well, and this is going to be a scrap. I mean, on the feet, even if Iaquinta comes in with no rust and he was fighting a little bit more consistently, I think that this would be quite a scrap regardless of the situation. But still, I think it's going to be even closer, a little bit more competitive now that, you know, we're seeing the layoff and we're not sure what kind of Iaquinta we're going to get here. So I've been going back and forth on this fight, to be honest with you. I think it is a pick'em type of fight, so the line's appropriately set right now where it's at, with Iaquinta being the slight favorite. I'm going to pick him to win the fight. I think, like I said, he does have more ways to win, and I think he's got the advantages over Felder as a whole, but this is going to be close. And, I mean, both these guys are going to have their moments in this fight as well. So could be a dog or pass situation. I don't know if I would lay any chalk on Iaquinta until we see him get back in and maybe string together 2 or 3 wins. But the good thing, I guess, for Iaquinta is Felder's not really known for his ground game. And when Iaquinta does suffer a loss or suffer just one of those moments in the octagon that he wants to not look back on. I mean, it's typically his ground that lets him down. So I don't think he's going to have to worry about getting subbed by Felder here or making a mistake on the ground here. It's obviously going to be more of a stand-up friendly affair. So that's good for Iaquinta, but I think we're going to see a scrap and it'll be a close competitive fight. So the pick is Iaquinta. Hopefully he looks back to, what he was before he kind of had this layoff and what we're used to seeing, because he was climbing that ladder at 155 pounds. And he was looking good. He was on his way to a potential title shot. So that's the kind of ability Iaquinta has. This is a great spot for Felder to come in and kind of, put Iaquinta back in his place or set him back a little bit as well. So this is going to be a great fight. We're really looking forward to it. Probably one of the fights I'm looking forward to the most on this whole card. But the slight lean is Iaquinta, and I do think it's a pick'em type of fight.
Paul Felder is a fighter that I've gained a ton of respect for recently, mainly through his commentary and through his knowledge of the sport. I mean, the guy clearly is a student of the game, and we've seen some improvements, drastic improvements in his ground game and his fight IQ. I think, he's clearly a guy that is capable of making a run. That being said, when he's been in there against strikers, like talented strikers, that's usually the matchup that Paul Felder has the most trouble with. Felder is a good striker in his own right. He has some diverse attacks. He has some crazy spinning stuff, some great kicks. So he's clearly a guy that is dangerous. But my issue with Felder is the fact that when he's been in there against good strikers like Edson Barbosa, like Francisco Trinaldo, even Ross Pearson, who is a pretty good technical striker, not a great one, Felder's had issues. And he ends up losing decisions or getting a doctor stoppage like against Trinaldo. So I think that this could be a similar situation. Felder should have the advantage from distance with his kicking game. He should have an edge if it goes to the floor, because Iaquinta has made a lot of mistakes on the canvas against fighters. But in terms of just in the phone booth boxing range, Iaquinta should have a significant edge. He has the faster hands. I think Iaquinta has a little bit more punching power. And Iaquinta is a little bit more aggressive, so he's going to land more often. So, and realistically, if you check, Iaquinta actually has pretty good striking defense too. So, this is a guy that, we haven't seen him much in the past 2 years. Only one fight, and it was against Diego Sanchez, the ghost of Diego Sanchez. But if Iaquinta is fighting to his potential, then I think Paul Felder is a matchup he can win. It just all matters that he has to keep this fight in his realm. If it stays in the boxing range and he doesn't let it go to the floor, he doesn't let it screw around in the clinch or at kickboxing range, then I think Iaquinta is going to have a really good shot to not just win, but perhaps even get a stoppage. Iaquinta has some good power and he's aggressive, and I think that Paul Felder can be exposed against aggressive, talented strikers. So Iaquinta is going to be my pick as long as Felder does not take it out of his comfort zone. So we'll see what happens on fight night, but I think that there's a good chance Iaquinta pulls this one out. Now, sticking with the lightweight division, we have Michael Chiesa, who is 14-3, taking on Anthony Pettis, who is 20-7. Now, Nick, what's the MMA odds maker's perspective on this one?
Chiesa open -120, Pettis open -120. Exactly a pick'em type of fights when it opened. Right now, though, it's Chiesa -135. The comeback on Pettis at +105 over at BetDSI. So a little bit more action coming in Chiesa's way. Man, this is crazy. I mean, to me, Pettis has been for crying out loud, he was on the Wheaties box. He's been one of the best champions at one point, or one of the most promising, most popular, most everything. I mean, the guy was on top of the world, and to see his decline be where it's at right now, it's kind of sad. I mean, it is what it is, but he's definitely not the same fighter he was. It was upsetting to see his loss against Poirier. I know he got a win before that against Miller, but it wasn't even all that great. And then, of course, Holloway ended up finishing him as well. So this is not the same Pettis. The decline is real. I mean, I'm not sure what happened, whether it was a weight cut down to 145 pounds, and now he just hasn't just been the same at 155 pounds. I'm not sure. I mean, we saw the decline coming. That's one of the reasons he dropped to the featherweight division in the first place as well. So it's not the same Anthony Pettis that was once on top of the world for sure. And Chiesa has a good opportunity here to come in and get another quality win on his resume. And stylistically speaking, Chiesa can present a lot of problems to Pettis. I mean, in the past, we know when Pettis has been, defeated, it's been because a guy can grind him out a little bit, gets him enough takedowns to beat him that way in that regard as well. Chiesa can do that here. I think he can get the takedowns. He's got to be careful. Of course, you can never count Pettis out. I mean, he's definitely dangerous on the ground. He's got good submission ability. I mean, look what he did to Ben Henderson back in the day. I mean, slick as heck, going for those arm bars. And even your neck, he gets you in that guillotine choke. You're in some serious trouble. You can't get out. So Chiesa definitely has to be cautious on the ground when he's going for those takedowns. If Chiesa gets Pettis' back, I think it's a wrap for Pettis though as well. Chiesa gets anybody's back, I think his success rate is very high. He's got a slick rear naked choke. I mean, once he gets around your neck again, there's not much you can do about it there either. So Chiesa has ways to win his fight. Now, for Pettis, he's going to probably want to keep this upright. Even though he is on the decline, he still should have the striking advantage over a guy like Chiesa, especially if he digs to that body. Chiesa is definitely a little bit weaker to that body. Pettis loves to exploit that in most of his opponents. So that's his path to victory as well. I think keep this on the feet, outstrike Chiesa, do some damage along the way and hurt him. But I don't think Chiesa is going to make it that easy. I think Chiesa is going to close the distance, get this fight to the ground. And once on the ground, he's probably going to be able to do some damage, if not submit Pettis. So in his prime, I think Pettis wins this, but it's not Pettis in his prime. So I think this is a great opportunity for Chiesa to come in here and pick up a solid win. Like I said, I think he gets it done. So it's more in a way of me not having the confidence in Pettis anymore. And I think Chiesa is kind of on the rise where Pettis is on the decline. So I think Chiesa is a good spot here, and I think I expect him to win. So I do agree with the early action coming in Chiesa's way. I think that's probably the side that's going to win it this weekend. So the pick is Chiesa.
If this fight had taken place a couple of years ago, it would have been Anthony Pettis as my pick. No questions asked. Wouldn't have even had to do much of a breakdown. But with the Anthony Pettis that we've seen recently, not even recently, but ever since he lost his title, it's just been a completely different picture. I mean, Pettis took a lot of damage in those fights that he lost, and he just hasn't looked the same. He gets hurt in fights. He slows down in fights. He's not nearly aggressive or active enough on the feet, and he's not aggressive or active enough on the ground. I mean, it's been kind of sad, to be honest. So I was hoping that he could return to form by moving back up to the lightweight division, and he looked okay against Jim Miller, but Miller's another veteran that's nearing the end of his run in the UFC. And when Pettis went in there against another top guy like Dustin Poirier, I mean, he got beat up. I mean, he got hurt really bad in that fight. And against somebody like Chiesa, yeah, Pettis should have the striking edge, but everywhere else, I'm just not convinced. Chiesa's aggressive. Chiesa is an excellent wrestler, and Chiesa has a very strong ground game. So if Chiesa can just close the distance on Pettis, I think Pettis is going to be in trouble. I mean, Pettis has a really bad habit of backing up towards the fence and letting himself get cornered. And if Chiesa can just close the distance and drag him to the floor, then he's going to probably win this fight. I don't know if he'll be able to get a submission. That's probably going to be difficult because Pettis has been historically tough to finish. The only guy that's been able to do it has been Max Holloway, and then most recently the doctor stoppage or injury stoppage against Poirier. So I don't know if Chiesa can pull that off, but I mean, I can see Chiesa just grinding this out, wearing Pettis down, and I just don't see Pettis being able to keep up with him after the first round. So unless Pettis lands a vicious body kick in the first round, then I think Chiesa just grinds this out and wins a decision. So my pick is going to be Michael Chiesa. Now dropping down to the featherweight division, we have Renato Moicano, who is 11-1-1, taking on Calvin Kattar, who is 18-2. Now, Nick, where did this fight open, and how has the public shifted at things so far?
Kattar opened -180. The comeback on Moicano +140. Right now looking over at BetDSI. It is currently -126 for Kattar, -104 for Moicano. So needless to say, more action coming in Moicano's way early on. This is going to be a good fight. I mean, I understand the action coming in on Moicano. I think the line was probably open a little bit higher for Kattar, but at the same time, I mean, you cannot deny what Kattar has accomplished recently as of late. I mean, it's been impressive to say the least, because I mean, he ended up going out there and defeating somebody that we all held in high regards in Burgos in his last fight. I mean, Burgos was a monster on the feet, got good wrestling, just tremendous knockout power. And really, Kattar, I mean, from the opening bell, he was taking it to Burgos. He was landing. He clearly won the first round. You know, things changed in the second round, but he managed to get it back in the third round and finish Burgos, which was impressive. So that wasn't a fluke coming off that win over Feely either. We know Kattar's legit. I mean, he took that Feely fight on short notice, and he still defeated a very good fighter in Feely. So Kattar is on a roll right now. His confidence is at an all-time high. He's a tremendous striker. He's got good takedown defense, so he can keep the fight upright in most cases as well. I mean, he can definitely make a run towards a possible title shot, and this is going to be another stepping stone for him if he can get the job done against Moicano. But I think we're counting Moicano out just maybe a little bit too much. Now, again, the early bettors that came in and took a stab at that +140, and now that's gone. Obviously, you guys are probably on the right track as far as value goes. I think Moicano, he suffered a defeat to Ortega in a fight that was very competitive, and he could have arguably been winning at that time before he ended up getting caught in that choke. Now, we all know Ortega's chokes are just on another level in most cases. Once he gets around your neck, you're not getting out of there. So that loss doesn't seem as bad right now. And again, it was a fight that he was potentially winning. It depends on the judges' scorecards, of course, up at that point. But I think Moicano on the feet, he's a threat. I mean, if you look what he did against Jeremy Stephens, he beat Stephens up in that fight. And of course, we know what kind of success Stephens has had after that fight. He's been on quite a roll overall as well. So Moicano can strike with the best of them. He's got a great ground game. He's got underrated wrestling. Once he gets you to the ground, he can definitely have his way as well. Now, I don't know if it's going to be easy for Moicano to get Kattar to the ground. I think it's going to be a battle. And I think that Moicano's the type of fighter that sometimes he's a little bit too content not going to the ground. So if it stays upright, it's going to be a back and forth war. Kattar probably is the better overall striker on the feet, but Moicano can do some damage and he'll land his as well. So I think on the feet, it's going to be a very, very competitive fight. Could go back and forth. But the difference here will probably be Moicano going for a takedown here and there. And I think he ends up kind of grinding him out enough that he manages to get the W on the scorecards here, or possibly maybe finishes Kattar on the ground. I mean, that's a possibility as well. So I am going to go with the slight upset here in Moicano. I think, again, you can argue that he should be favored coming into this fight. Even though Kattar's had some quality wins in his 2 fights with the UFC so far, I still think Moicano is probably a tad bit better. And like I said, I think he could be the rightful favorite in this fight. So the pick is going to be Moicano for me. I am expecting a very good fight. And if Kattar can pull this off again, man, I mean, that's 3 quality wins. You got to really start taking this guy seriously. Not that I'm not. I think, like I said, his wins have been impressive enough for me, but win over Moicano again, just another notch on his resume. So it'd be a big win for Kattar. I just don't think he's going to get it done. I think Moicano is going to sneak away with a quality competitive win here.
And I can totally see Moicano pulling this fight off. He is a talented striker with an elite ground game. So if he can hold his own with Kattar on the feet and set up an opportunity to get it to the floor, then he's going to be in really good shape. I mean, he might even be able to outstrike Kattar. That being said, Kattar has been one of the most pleasant surprises of any UFC newcomer. I mean, he was brought in as a literal last-second replacement to take on Andre Feely, and he goes out and he wins a decision against Feely, a well-earned decision. And then he takes on Shane Burgos, a guy that a lot of people thought was a top contender, and he doesn't just hold his own against Burgos, he finishes him in the 3rd round. So Kattar is a fighter that I'm not going to sleep on anymore. I mean, this guy is very talented. He has some power in his hands. He's not just a counter striker. He has pretty good striking defense. He has excellent striking offense. He's accurate. The only thing that, I'm really worried about at all is we haven't seen much of his ground game. So, what happens if he does get put on his back? What happens if Moicano, wraps him up? How's his submission defense? There's a lot of question marks there. So, that being said, I think Kattar can hold his own against Moicano on the feet. I know that Moicano was able to win against Jeremy Stephens, but I think Jeremy Stephens is more of a fighter that is reliant on his power and is trying to take somebody's head off, and Stephens was probably underestimating Moicano. Kattar will not be doing that, and Kattar, I think, is just a solid technical striker, and I think this is going to be a competitive battle on the feet, but I think Kattar should get the edge, and if Kattar is getting the better of Moicano, I think Moicano might start to get a little bit desperate, and if he does not get this fight to the floor, I think Kattar is going to be in really good shape. So I'm going to pick Kattar. I think that he can win a close decision. But again, I wouldn't be shocked if Moicano pulls this off. So I'm only tentatively picking Calvin Kattar here. Now, moving on to the co-main event of the evening in the women's strawweight division, we have the champion, Rose Namajunas, who is 8-3, taking on the woman she dethroned, Joanna Jędrzejczyk, who is 14-1, and this is an immediate rematch. Now, Nick, what's the MMA oddsmaker's perspective on this one?
Jędrzejczyk opened -210. The comeback on Namajunas at +160. The lines dropped all the way down to Jędrzejczyk -115. The comeback on Namajunas at -105. And right now over at DSI, -119, -111. So basically a pick 'em with a slight lean towards the former champ across the board on the down best screen as well. This is another battle, man. I tell you what, I think stylistically, Namajunas is just a bad matchup for Jędrzejczyk. I really do believe that. So all the dog action that came in early on, I can respect it. I mean, I don't think it was kind of as much as a fluke as a lot of people do out there with Jędrzejczyk, because she was such a dominant champion, and we all know that. I mean, she performed at a high level every time out, and she faced the best of the best in her weight class and just went through everybody up until Rose. So that was a bit of a surprise. A lot of people didn't think that Rose would be the girl to dethrone Jędrzejczyk, but she was, and she didn't do it by mistake either. I mean, I think stylistically, she just matches up really good. Strike for strike, I think she has enough knockout power to test that chin of Jędrzejczyk, and I think that's one of the biggest issues with Jędrzejczyk. It's her striking defense. It's weird with her because, I mean, if you look at the Andrade fight, of course, Andrade is a different fighter. She's aggressive. She's shorter, doesn't have that reach or whatever, and Jędrzejczyk was able to keep her at bay and make that fight look impressive and look easy. Now with Rose, it's a different type of situation. I mean, I think that, she obviously has a little bit more length and she counters well and she was able to get through and do some damage on Jędrzejczyk as well. So I think we're going to see a similar situation here and this go around. I think that, it wasn't a fluke. We've seen Jędrzejczyk get dropped, several times in her past as well when people did get through. If you look at her fight against, Kalikas was able to do some damage there. Gadella was able to do some damage. Valerie Letourneau was able to do some damage against that chin, of Jędrzejczyk as well. So, it's not really a fluke. I think that she has an issue with that chin, and it's probably going to get exploited as well, again here in this situation as well. Now, if the fight, I expect it to last a little bit longer, of course, and be a little bit more competitive. I don't think Rose is going to blow right through her this time, but you got to also remember if Rose does get her back, I think she's capable of submitting her as well. So I think Rose is just her kryptonite. I mean, as sad as that is, because Jędrzejczyk again was quite a champion. I just think her reign is going to be over right now. Now, that being said, once Rose does successfully defend this belt, I mean, it's not out of the realm that she gets beat her very next fight. I mean, there's matchups out there that are tough for Rose as well. So it gets interesting from here on out. I think the division's wide open again. So interesting to see where it's going to go. But in this particular fight, I do believe that Namajunas is every bit as good as Jędrzejczyk in this matchup. And I think she's going to actually defend her belt successfully. And we'll see Ann Still at the end of this. So a lot of people out there thinking that it was a fluke. I think you guys are going to be surprised it wasn't a fluke. Namajunas is going to probably finish Jędrzejczyk again. So my pick is the defending champ to retain.
And I'm going to have to agree. I'm not going to say that there's a major problem with Joanna's striking defense. I mean, she's actually has historically better defense by a percentage at least than Rose. The problem is it's her chin. Joanna's been hurt several times now in fights. I mean, you go back and she got dropped twice by Claudia Gadelha, who's not exactly a great stand-up artist. She got hurt by Karolina Kowalkiewicz in the later rounds of their title fight. And then obviously she got dropped twice and then finished by Rose in the first round of their fight. Now what Rose did differently was she used excellent head movement. I mean, she was clearly prepared for the combinations that Joanna likes to throw. And then she was able to slip those combinations and then land stiff counters where she sat down on her punches and really cracked Joanna with just a nasty straight shot. Now, the one thing though is Joanna now knows a little bit what to expect from Rose. So I think that now she's going to be taking Rose a little bit more seriously on the feet, because Rose really had never shown elite stand-up before. I mean, she held her own in the rematch against Tecia Torres, but I mean, honestly, I thought Tecia won that fight. So this time around, though, I mean, Rose has been showing some steady improvement every time we've kind of seen her, and it seemed like it all really came together. And Rose has excellent technique on the feet, and when she does sit down on her strikes, she does have some pop. And obviously she has an elite ground game as well. That's what actually got her through the Ultimate Fighter season to the finals when she got her initial title shot against Carla Esparza. It was Rose's submission game that actually was the most impressive. But now she's both dangerous on the feet and on the ground. She's really starting to put it all together, and I think that that's what's going to make her very dangerous. The best chance that Joanna has in this fight is to really stall it out a little bit, drag this fight into deeper waters, because Rose has historically done her worst in the later rounds of fights when she starts to tire a little bit, or if she gets worn down. If you look back at the Kowalkiewicz fight where she just wound up on her back and she didn't know what to do because she was getting tired, or the Esparza fight when she couldn't pull off a submission off of her back and she just started taking a lot of punishment. So there have been situations where Rose has been put in situations that she has not responded well, and a lot of it has been from getting worn down. So if Joanna can wear her down a little bit, then I think that she'll be in better shape. But if she goes out there just blaming a weight cut for her loss and fights the exact same way, then I think Rose knocks her out again. So I'm going to pick Rose. I think that she might just have the style that is the kryptonite to Joanna. So Rose is my pick. Now this brings us to the main event of the evening. We have a UFC lightweight title fight between the undefeated Khabib Nurmagomedov, who is 25-0, and the featherweight champion Max Holloway, who steps in on a week's notice after the injury to Tony Ferguson, and Holloway has a 19-3 record. Now, Nick, where did this fight open, and how has the public shifted things so far?
I opened this fight minus 505 for Nurmagomedov, and the comeback on Holloway at plus 365. Now, Khabib is currently sitting at minus, let me see here, market price about minus 475, plus 375 out there. So line margins have tightened up a little bit more, and about 5-1, just under 5-1 a little bit. So it's holding steady. Some dog action definitely coming in on Holloway. That will be countered by some straight action coming back in on Khabib as well. So this is an interesting fight, to say the least, because you have one of the best fighters on the UFC roster, and Holloway stepping in on short notice, a warrior always up for the challenge, facing one of the most devastating grinders of all time, really, in the UFC. I mean, Khabib is just such a dominant force on the ground. What he's been able to do, especially as of late, has been remarkable. I mean, I've continued to kind of doubt the guy a little bit, thinking, all right, man, once he faces somebody that's going to be able to stop his takedowns, he's going to be in a world of trouble. I thought Barboza might be that guy, because Barboza's takedown defense overall is really solid, and once you do get him down, he's hard to keep down. But it didn't matter for Khabib. I mean, he was able to do his thing against Barboza. That was a brutal beating he gave him. So that was impressive. Before that, Michael Johnson, same thing. When have we really seen Michael Johnson just get beat up that way, on the ground against anybody? Now, I know Michael Johnson dropped down a weight class and just got beat again since then, but to Elkins, but that's, regardless, it's impressive what Khabib's been doing to a lot of guys that have decent takedown defense. It doesn't matter. He still runs through you, gets you to the floor. And then once on the floor, I mean, he's just been brutal. He's been, that killer instinct has taken a whole new life. I mean, it's on a different level. I think he's getting more devastating and he's getting nastier on the ground as he goes. So he knows that's his way to win. I know that he tested the stand-up game against Barboza a little bit as well. He was throwing some bombs on the feet, and he had a little bit of success in that, right? But make no mistake, Barboza was really expecting those takedowns, so that's why he did have success. And that's what Khabib brings to the table as well. You try to stop his takedowns. You're always looking for it. He's going to land on you, and he does have a little bit of power, so you got to watch it here. And I think Holloway's takedown defense as a whole is pretty solid. Obviously, he's, nobody's had success as of late taking him down, but make no mistake, in the past, I mean, he was out-wrestled by Conor McGregor. He was out-wrestled in previous fights as well. He has been taken down. He has been controlled, and he's facing another level now at a weight class above on short notice. I just don't think he's going to stuff those takedowns, and I think Khabib is going to be able to do what he does best and kind of grind Max out. Max is not a quitter. He's going to hang in there as much as he can until a certain point where I think he gets in a bad spot and just Khabib possibly starts unloading on him. So it's going to be interesting to see how long this fight lasts. But I do think Khabib is going to come away with a win. So stylistically, it's just a tough matchup for Holloway. It would be kind of cool, though, I got to admit, if Holloway can somehow keep this fight upright and stay off his back. He's definitely the better striker. He's a smart fighter. The pace he puts on people, even with short notice, I mean, I don't think he's going to really gas out all that much. I mean, the guy has an endless gas tank and he puts it on people. So it will be interesting to see, and I wouldn't necessarily be disappointed to see a good upset like that as well. So we'll see how this fight plays out. But to me, it's kind of a no-brainer. I think it's just a tough matchup for Holloway to step in on short notice against one of the most dominant wrestlers in the game and expect to pull this off. So just not a good matchup for Holloway. So my pick is Khabib to get the W here.
And I have to agree. Yeah, Max Holloway's on a tremendous winning streak, but how many wrestlers has he really faced on that winning streak? Not many. Not many guys that even really tried to take him down other than, a guy like Ricardo Lamas. And even that fight, I mean, Lamas kept it standing for the most part. So, against Khabib, it just feels like this is a whole nother animal. Holloway actually still does have some good size. Khabib only will have 1 inch in reach on him. Holloway's actually going to be an inch or two taller. So, I mean, it's going to look competitive, but my biggest issue is the second this fight goes to the floor, because Khabib, when he gets top position, he can be stifling, and he is just tenacious. Even if Holloway does stuff a takedown, Khabib doesn't just quit going for takedowns. He's going to keep going for takedowns, and he'll keep driving through with his takedowns. He doesn't just shoot and then if it doesn't work, flop to his back. I mean, he shoots and then keeps switching up the technique. He switches from a double to a single. I mean, however it happens, he's going to be getting the takedown. Max Holloway should not be able to stop him for too long. You got to remember, Max Holloway just pulled out of a main event earlier this month. Earlier last month, for the last UFC pay-per-view. I mean, he was supposed to headline that against Frankie Edgar, but Holloway was forced out with an injury. And I think that some of the criticism that he took from pulling out for the first time in his career, he took that to heart, and that really bothered him. So when this fight became available, even if he's not fully ready, Holloway was just like, screw it, I'm going to show everybody how tough I am. And now he's going to go in there against Khabib Nurmagomedov. So I think that he is too tough for his own good, might be the best way to describe Max Holloway. I mean, this is a kid that is an absolute warrior that I have the utmost respect for, but I just think that this is a really bad stylistic matchup. I mean, Nick brought it up. I mean, Conor was able to take Max Holloway down. That's how he actually won the fight, because Conor hurt his knee. He couldn't stand with Holloway anymore. So he needed to get takedowns to win the fight. And if a blown out knee Conor can take down Holloway at 145, what's Khabib Nurmagomedov going to do at 155 against a short notice, just pulled out of a title fight a month ago, Max Holloway, who might still be nursing that same injury? I just think that, yeah, Max Holloway is going to be the better striker, but how long is he going to be able to keep the striking going when Khabib is putting him on his back and just wailing on him? I mean, I guess the best chance for victory here is for Khabib to have not much success at all with the takedowns, and then he just gets really tired from going for so many and not getting them. But that's really putting a lot of pressure on Holloway to have the best takedown defense of his entire career. And I just don't think he'll be able to do it. So I'm a huge Holloway fan. I'm not going to lose any stock. He's not going to lose any stock in my eyes if this doesn't go well for him because of the situation he's in out of his own weight class. But I just think this is going to be too much for him, and Khabib, the train will keep rolling, and I think that he earns his first belt here. So my pick is going to be Khabib Nurmagomedov. So that'll do it for our full event breakdown for UFC 223. Now our premium section of the site is being revamped a little bit, so we won't have any premium bets for this card. But if we do have a free play to give out, make sure to follow at MMAOB Premium on Twitter, because that's where we'll post them first. We can also notify you of our free bets via email alert if you prefer that method. Just send an email to picks@MMAOddsBreaker.com and we'll add you to our free bet mailing list. Special thanks to BetDSI. Good luck, everyone, and hopefully the betting gods are on your side this weekend.